So we have relationship OCD. Relationship OCD can have a lot of similar features to the other themes where we're dealing with the same sort of complexity of intrusive thoughts, body sensations, arousal. I mean, it can be arousal concordance, but not intention-based, values-based with our OCD. So it's a little bit different, but there can be similar, body sensation stuff going on. Um, there's a lot I could say about relationship OCD, but some initial observations is understanding that it isn't just intimate relationships, it's all relationships that can latch onto in life, and it can take different angles. So it can be worrying that the person is wrong for me, or that I'm wrong for them, or becoming ruminative about, different aspects of relationships. So there's lots of ways it shows up. So it can be worth really understanding for you as an individual what's my idiosyncratic presentation of ROCD and what are the triggers, what are the unworkable beliefs I have about relationships, what are the compulsions, what are the core fears, understanding all of that so we know where to interrupt the cycle with skills, where to target our ERP, what compulsions we need to let go of. Um, but, I often see it kind of starts with these unworkable beliefs where we have been socially conditioned to believe unhelpful things about intimate relationships. I'll kind of stick on intimate relationships, but you could say friendship here as well, or families, or pets even, or anything you care about, any relationship you care about. So we carry these beliefs, from a very young age where we're seeing Disney and reading books and hearing these stories about these romantic relationships that, you know, if it showed the truth for Prince Charming and the princess that I forget which one it is, but Cinderella or whoever, if it showed that yes, they might have had this initial uh, romantic in love phase, although that's not always there in healthy relationships either, and that can trip people up. I didn't have that stage, but um, you know, if it really told that story of them having that, and then it showed their life of dealing with ups and downs in the relationship and different levels of connection and developing into more of a friendship and how they're navigating their sex life over time and how they're navigating other people that they're attracted to. It wouldn't be the same romantic Hollywood sort of story. So, um, we all get socially conditioned from a very young age into these kind of beliefs that don't represent what relationship therapy, the science and psychology of relationships says about long-term relationships and our individual differences and our idiosyncratic, sort of attachment style and our own, emotional style and neurodivergence and all these other things that might affect how we are in relationship. So we want to undermine all of that and probably understand that long-term relationships take hard work. They will go on a journey. You will feel really connected at times. You will feel more disconnected. The point is that it's something that needs to be worked on like a garden, right? You wouldn't expect just when you get all that, say you commission a company to set up this amazing garden for you, and suddenly down the line it's full of weeds, all the beautiful plants have died, and it's a real mess. You're not going to go, oh gosh, like there's something wrong with the garden. You're going to go, like, I wasn't gardening, I wasn't in there taking care of it. And again, I always like to caveat with relationship OCD, there can be times where people are in very toxic, abusive relationships, and that's a whole different matter. And if you suspect you're in that, working with a therapist, working with advocates, working with the support of others, because I think people can get ROCD about those relationships where they're really trying to, make sense of try and forgive the partner and try and understand and, try and figure out how to make it work. I mean, I've had that kind of ROCD in the past where A lot of the mental compulsions was really about like, how can I make this work? The folk trying to focus in on the good stuff, trying to excuse the behavior that was more abusive, and that can happen, and that might be triggering for people with ROCD to hear, because you might be like, oh, am I in that relationship? Well, no, if you really have factual evidence of emotional abuse, or physical abuse or bullying or narcissistic behavior or other things like that, get therapeutic help on that with people who understand it. Codependency as well. There could be that kind of stuff going on with OCD around that, whether it's just characterized by a lot more intrusive thought, rumination, mental compulsion, a higher level compulsion than someone without OCD going through that. Um, but for other relationships, it's the garden takes work. We have to nurture it over time, and that garden might have a season where a load of things die off, and we have to cut them back, and then let them grow back, and try and take care of the garden and get it back to a good place. So, understanding more workable beliefs around looking after a relationship in the long run, um, attraction, sexual desire, all of these factors of a relationship, which will go up and down, that will change over time. Often we're not thinking about us either, that we're changing over time, and we may not be as attractive as we once were, or we might not be perfect either. Like OCD, with relationship OCD, it can focus in on the physical appearance and the sort of sexual attraction, or the emotional personality stuff, and we can often forget that actually we're imperfect, and not every feature on me is perfectly symmetrical and ideal. And the more we threat monitor, if we take the physical side of it, the more we threat monitor, much like BDD, eventually we do start to see, we don't see the person's face as a whole, we see just that feature, and it starts to warp and grow and look, really, different. And really, it can happen with anyone. I've had clients with, partners that are models and whatever else, and they still can be going, well, they're too perfect, or they don't have this color hair, or they don't have that, that you can find imperfection in anything. If you look around you in the room, you could look at anything, you could appreciate it and savor it, or you could start to find the imperfection in it, including it's boring because it's too perfect. So minds can always latch on to the physical stuff. Same with emotions and personality. No one's perfect. Sometimes there are like behaviors in our partners that they need help with, and we need to coach and support. And I think ROCD, sometimes you do benefit from learning about the psychology of relationships and having some relationship therapy work, but it doesn't mean, like the OCD is saying, um, this is the end of the line, and this is the end of this relationship. So the complexity I see is yeah, based around beliefs, based around the sort of intensity of compulsions, and threat monitoring, ruminating, really getting very, very focused on imperfection. Um, the impact of OCD then changing our behavior and starting to make the relationship not work so well. Um, Decision making OCD can get in there, that, if I make one decision, I do give up on others, and that can be painful, and no one is perfect. And actually, there are millions of people you could end up with. So it is, you commit to something, you make a choice because of the finitude of life, and that you want to make that commitment. If we're talking relationship based OCD and intimate partnerships, and it does close down other doors, and people can have unworkable beliefs around that you might at times wonder about other people. You might find other people attractive. You might think, my partner doesn't meet absolutely every one of my needs. And all of those beliefs can be driving, instead of us working on having the best relationship we can and really being empathic and understanding the other and, thinking about what we can give to the relationship rather than what they should be giving to us. The things we can control, our behavior, what we show up with, and how we respond. So I think, again, understanding that specific pattern, what's showing up for people working on these different areas. I'll probably do some more stuff directly on ROCD because I think that there's more I could say, but the main complexities are often the way it interplays the main complexities I see are often how it interplays with other OCD themes like sexual orientation OCD, the beliefs really, the unworkable beliefs around relationship and this sort of decision making part of it as well. So the antidotes for relationship OCD, some of the ideas I've said there, again, we have to go after the compulsions. If I'm looking at a painting and constantly monitoring what's wrong with it and ruminating and analyzing and comparing it to other paintings, there's no way I can stand in that gallery and appreciate that painting. I have to get out of all that compulsion to really appreciate it. So getting those compulsions down, where we're judging, analyzing, ruminating, checking, comparing, doing all those sorts of things, and just get connected to our partner, get absorbed, get better at listening, better at being present with them in intimacy, present with them in the things you do together. We have to work on these unworkable beliefs so we could learn a bit about relationships, the Gottman method I like, or emotion focused therapy for couples, or there are various people out there that have written good stuff on relationships and what the reality is of a long-term relationship. So you have to be careful you're not reading all of that for reassurance and compulsions, but some degree of learning that relationships are hard work and we need to nurture them over time, and that we will be attracted to other people, and that these are normal things, and that our attraction, desire, connection, emotional connection, all of these things will go up and down over time. So we need to change that belief, at least understand that. And then we need to build our ERP around nurturing the relationship, make sure we're not avoiding certain people and certain situations, and reclaiming, our full, rich life. And doing that with our partner, but also having this time apart and then coming back together and really learning, how to nurture that relationship.